Fine work, Detective.
Testament to what can be achieved when you dress appropriately. Let's pound it out.
It's hard to see now because of how successful it became, but when trailers like that one first teased Fox's Brooklyn Nine-Nine, they didn't exactly inspire a lot of confidence. The series looked like a rehash of some of the oldest and tiredest tropes in the police comedy genre, and the presence of Andy Samberg just made it all seem like an uninspired Saturday Night Live sketch, so nobody was expecting much. Turns out though, subverting expectations would be exactly what made Brooklyn Nine-Nine a classic.
Bing pots! Nope, I was gonna say bingo, but then I was like, jackpot's better, but then it was too late. I was halfway through the word.
Bing pot works. It's taken off.
It's taken off.
While working together on NBC's critically acclaimed hit series Parks and Rec, co-creator Michael Schur and writer, director, and producer Dan Gore decided to team up and create a new show. But to quote Schur, "It's hard to find areas in the comedy landscape that haven't been troughed. There hadn't been a major sitcom set in a police station since Barney Miller, so that's what they decided to develop." Once Andy Samberg, fresh off his 7-year run on SNL, signed on to star as Detective Jake Peralta, the show had a smooth ride through the development process. But when the first commercial started to drop, audiences weren't quite sure what to think.
What's wrong with you?
Never took off the Speedo. Big mistake. It is inside me.
Those early glimpses seemed to hint at a series where a cocky, young, white hotshot policeman outsmarts his mostly minority colleagues while playing juvenile pranks on his stodgy old superior. It sort of looked like someone had just cast Samberg in the Steve Guttenberg role from Police Academy, filed off the serial numbers, and then lazily made a series of it. And when the show itself premiered, the opening minutes of its pilot, which depicts Peralta gleefully cracking jokes while his Latina partner, Detective Amy Santiago, diligently works to unravel a case he's already solved, mostly through luck, didn't do much to dispel the impression. But by the end of that first episode, it was very clear that Brooklyn Nine-Nine was just setting our expectations so it could knock them all down. In fact, the show would quickly come to be known for deliberately and cleverly subverting widely held expectations of sitcoms and cop stories, as well as the racial stereotypes and traditional notions of masculinity those stories usually rest on.
A year ago, my wife and I had twin baby girls.
They have adorable chubby cheeks.
Ever since, I kind of got scared of getting hurt.
The police action usually just provided a framework for reinventing the types of characters and relationships we're used to seeing, and it was all pretty apparent right from the pilot. The first episode found the titular precinct being assigned a new commanding officer, the stoic and extremely formal Captain Raymond Holt. But Peralta's casual attitude, attire, and general disregard for procedure immediately puts him on Holt's bad side. Over the course of the story, the young detective makes several attempts to prove how effective he is despite being a rule breaker, and he is, in fact, pretty good at his job.
Does anyone here know why it's so important to me that you all dress appropriately? 4 highly trained detectives and not one of you can solve this simple mystery.
Peralta realizes the captain is right, and his disregard for procedure, specifically his refusal to wear a tie, just alienates his fellow detectives and prevents him from really being part of his team.
It's a uniform. We're a team, and the tie is a part of that team's uniform, right?
Brooklyn Nine-Nine also made a point to not punch down with its humor. For example, in that same episode, Jake learns that Captain Holt is gay. A lot of comedies of the era would have taken the opportunity to have the hero make a crack at the expense of the captain, or the idea of working with a gay man. But the joke here winds up being that Jake, a trained detective, couldn't figure it out even though everyone else knew, as well as being a headline in the newspaper. Suddenly aware of the string of assumptions he made about Holt based on his stereotype, Jake humbles and becomes more open to what the captain has to teach him. And this becomes something of a model for how relationships on Brooklyn Nine-Nine function. The characters on the show usually treat each other like people with feelings and react to each other with compassion and an openness to growth. At least, they do when it really matters. So instead of spending the stories barking at the hero like a typical angry Black Chief character, the kind so brilliantly skewered in the previous year's 21 Jump Street reboot,
it ain't nothing but a stupid stereotype. Well, guess what, motherfuckers? I'm black, and I work my ass off to be the captain. And sometimes I get angry.
Holt becomes a mentor and father figure to Jake.
Nice work.
Good. Thanks, Dad.
You just called Captain Holt Dad.
What? No, I didn't. I said thanks, man.
I believe you.
Thank you.
Son, you want to talk about it later over a game of catch?
I'd like that.
He's even there to tell Jake he's proud of him after Jake comes to terms how terrible his real father was in the emotional second season episode, Captain Peralta. And Holt is far from being the only typically stereotypical character in the ensemble to be so fully realized. Detective Rosa Diaz is held out as the usual tight-lipped, tough-as-nails cop.
Don't smile, I'm still mad at you.
I thought we were having a moment.
Moment's over, shut up.
But has a hidden sensitive side that opens the door to some surprisingly deep relationships.
I've only had Arlo for a day and a half, but if anything happened to him, I would kill everyone in this room and then myself.
Rosa is slowly revealed to be a doting friend to Jake, who in turn is there to support her when she comes out as bisexual to her parents in the season 5 episode, Game Night. The confession doesn't go over well, but Jake is there for his longtime friend regardless.
I'm bisexual.
There's no such thing as being bisexual.
Yes, there is. I know there is because that's who I am.
Similarly, despite his intimidating physique, Sergeant Terry Jeffords is depicted as a big-hearted family man and a true friend to Jake when he really needs one. His sweet nature makes it especially painful when he's racially profiled by another cop in the season 4 episode Moo Moo. And even though Holt initially counsels him not to report the incident, the whole squad unequivocally supports him. Jake and Amy even find themselves trying to explain racism to his daughters in one of the whole series' most affecting scenes.
A cop did a bad thing and tried to get your daddy in trouble.
Because Daddy's black?
Yeah,
That's scary.
it is scary. But that cop was wrong and what he did was bad.
Surprisingly tender relationships between unusually deep characters became one of the major hallmarks of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Despite being a critical darling, the show was never exactly a ratings powerhouse, so Brooklyn Nine-Nine could have easily turned out to be a flash in the pan. But its subversive treatment of the stereotypes and the unique, heartfelt relationships those subversions enabled deeply endeared it to its fan base. So when Fox canceled the show in 2018, hundreds of thousands of those fans, including celebrities like Guillermo del Toro, Lin-Manuel Miranda, and Mark Hamill, staged a massive social media campaign to save it. Campaigns like that don't always work, but this one did, and NBC picked up the show for another season. Then Chairman Robert Greenblatt even publicly expressed regret that the network had allowed the series to slip away to Fox in the first place. Brooklyn Nine-Nine would ultimately be renewed twice more, finally ending in a shortened 8th season in 2021.
The one thing you couldn't figure out was how to grow up. Well, I think you finally figured it out.
The point is that by 2013, a show about a juvenile hotshot white guy cop with an angry black chief and a bunch of wacky, often minority co-workers sounded cringe-inducingly old-fashioned, and it shouldn't have worked.
Let's go arrest that punk.
He says punk just like you.
What do you think he learned it? Punk.
But by refusing to force its incredibly diverse cast into the stereotypical roles and character tropes usually assigned to them, the series was able to create an ensemble of characters unlike anything audiences could find anywhere else. And then it treated those characters and their relationships with a level of respect that is seldomly afforded to others like them. That meant Brooklyn Nine-Nine could teach its audience important real-world lessons in today's world while getting a laugh.
Bing pot. I better call Kevin and tell him I won't be attending the opera. There's someone else I'd rather hear sing.
Oh, dang!
This is Brooklyn Nine-Nine. It's Andy Samberg's hard-hitting and often absurd procedural police comedy. It's fast, it's quick, it's witty. When this show starts cooking, it's hard to find anything funnier on primetime television.
Nine-Nine!
The show features a star-studded cast of brilliant comedic performers like Andy Samberg, Joe Latruglio, Chelsea Peretti, and Terry Crews. The show was created by Michael Schur, who co-created Parks and Rec, and Dan Gore, who used to write for Conan O'Brien and The Daily Show. Despite Brooklyn Nine-Nine's complete saturation of comedic talent oozing out of every pore of this production, the thing that makes the show work so well is that it takes itself just as seriously as any police procedural. The show is a constant reminder that comedy and drama aren't just connected, they're almost siblings. Today, we're going to take a look at an episode that exemplifies this concept to a near-perfect degree. That episode, Season 5, Episode 14, The Box. The episode starts off with the introduction of Philip Davidson, played by Sterling K. Brown. And if you're familiar with his work, you know that Sterling K. Brown is a solid performer when it comes to delivering a dramatic performance. In fact, he was nominated for an Emmy Award in his performance in this episode. This guy understands the assignment. He's immediately introduced to the audience as
The dentist who murdered someone. Spoiler alert, they think you did it.
And is escorted to the interrogation room. In just 40 seconds, the show lets you know exactly who this guy is, what is going on, and why we should care about the character. It's brevity at its finest, and a good example of how efficient the writers are at getting an episode started. In the next scene, we see Andy Samberg's detective Jake Peralta setting up an interrogation room, followed by the entrance of Captain Ray Holt, played by Andre Braugher. Andre Braugher is an extremely talented dramatic performer. He has a BA in theater from Stanford University, and he is a Juilliard graduate. Hiring actors like this is a huge reason Brooklyn Nine-Nine is so successful. Absurdist comedy is like flying a kite. Without a string, the kite would just fly off into the wild blue yonder, never to be seen again. The string allows this comedy kite to tether itself to something that allows us to control it. In this case, Brooklyn Nine-Nine's kite is tethered to rich dramatic performances from classically trained actors who facilitate the execution of well-timed and well-paced humor throughout the episode. The way the show introduces stakes is more often than not a little ham-fisted. However, it fits with the show's farcical nature. I mean, they really spelled this out for you with this dialogue between Peralta and Captain Holt. But time is precious in a 22-minute show, and every second matters. Rather than spending time delivering this dialogue in some clever or drawn-out way, Brooklyn Nine-Nine just lays it all out there. As the scene plays out, we get this great line from Captain Holt.
Do you know what I miss most about being a detective? A good interrogation, breaking suspects down.
This is an extremely important line because it cements Captain Holt's motivations inside of an emotional state of being. In this case, it's nostalgia for the old days of interrogating suspects. Cementing characters' motivations inside of an emotion or a philosophy helps drive comedy because it gives our characters something to fall back on should something get too out of hand or too ridiculous. In the case of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it gets ridiculous often. Okay, now we have our character's motivation, anchored our comedy and emotion, and created some pretty high stakes. This episode can finally start cooking, and it really kicks itself into gear quickly. It's important to note the setting here as well. The episode takes place almost entirely inside of this interrogation room. This not only saves the production money and time by not having to move the camera and crew from location to location, it also serves the plot of the episode by placing our characters in an environment that they can't really leave. It's essentially forcing these characters to interact with one another, which serves to heighten the drama of the episode. These cops have their man, and all they need is a confession. The rest of the episode takes place over, well, let's just call them beats. In the first beat, Holt and Peralta enter the interrogation room and set into motion a three-way power triangle that will continue to rotate throughout the episode. Everyone is trying to come out on top, to the point of disrupting existing relationships. Holt's plan to implement smart cop, dumb cop tugs at Peralta's insecurities surrounding his skills as an interrogator, but he goes along with it.
Me want to. Dumb cop.
I got that.
Yeah.
Well done.
Again, the thing that drives the comedy of Brooklyn Nine-Nine is the drama, and they pile it on pretty quickly.
Did you kill him?
No.
If you had said yes, I would have had you.
After Peralta's inquisition yields a little bit of success, Holt and Peralta step outside to have a quick discussion about the investigation. This is commonly referred to as resting. If we just blazed through the interrogation and only focused on what's happening in the interrogation room, this wouldn't be much of an episode. The writers break it up by resting the more intense moments of the show with a little exploration that happens outside of the primary plot of the episode. This does a couple of things. One, it lets the audience take a breather and catch up with the main character's state of mind. Two, it builds tension, allowing the moments we are inside of the interrogation room to land harder and resonate more with the audience. 3, it gives our characters time to make some more promises to the audience. Peralta wants to lie to attempt to get a confession, and he also brings up throwing a chair through the interrogation mirror. In comedy, taking a break from what's funny about something is almost equally as important as going for the laughs. It allows us to regroup, reset, and then resume. After another brief re-entry into the interrogation room, beat 2, we get another jab at Peralta's insecurities over oral hygiene before we rest again.
Damn it! Not only did we not break him, but now I have to go to the dentist?
But from here on out, it sets into motion a fun and games section of the episode. Things start to get pretty ridiculous through a series of back and forths. There's this name bit where Peralta makes the dentist say the victim's name in silly ways in an effort to get him to break. And then there's this.
2, 3, 4.
It's really over the top. But it's important to note that this episode earned its right to go over the top by taking its time setting up highly dramatic stakes in a grounded and emotional reality. In other words, they tethered their kite to something extremely solid and can now fly it as high as they want to because they earned it. The next time we enter the interrogation room, beat 3, the power triangle rotates again, and now it's the dentist who is interrogating the detectives. The dentist takes the detectives' repeated failures as an opportunity to further get under Holt and Peralta's skin, to the point of Peralta delivering the promise he made earlier about throwing the chair through the mirror. And now Peralta and Holt are at the height of their emotional conflicts. This is the all is lost moment where protagonists are about to concede defeat to the villain. We see this moment in just about everything we watch. In Star Wars, there's the point where Vader kills Obi-Wan. In Lord of the Rings, there's the point where Helm's Deep is about to fall. In Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it's where Captain Holt is telling Peralta that there's nothing left to do. Sure, it's much lower stakes than an orc army launching boulders into a castle built into a mountain, but the ingredients are the same. It's another example of how the show uses drama and seriousness to drive the comedy contained within its 22-minute time span. This prompts Peralta to deliver the last promise he made, the one about lying to the dentist, which of course backfires and heightens the drama even further, as it seems like this was the last weapon in Peralta's arsenal. The lawyer shows up to further drive the feeling of hopelessness and frustration, and we take one final rest. It's in this rest where Peralta and Holt not only seem to settle their differences, but also where Peralta comes up with one last plan to get the dentist to confess. If we weren't taking breaks from the action at hand, we would have never had time to explore these moments. He enters the interrogation room for one final beat and gets the confession. And the way in which he receives the confession is a culmination of everything that had come before it. Peralta proves that he is no longer the dumb cop by coming up with a plan to use the dentist's own narcissism against him. He still lies to him. Peralta knows that the glass award isn't the murder weapon, but this time, it's the right lie. This proves that Peralta's instincts were right. He just needed to figure out how to use them correctly. There's also a mirroring here between Peralta and the dentist. Peralta spends the entire episode wallowing in insecurity over his own perceived intelligence, and it's when he attacks the dentist's insecurities over pretty much the same thing, he gets him to react and confess.
Oh, damn. Oh, damn. Oh, damn!
And that is 3 oh dams.
It really puts a nice little bow on top of this whole episode. The episode wraps up with a nice little moment between Peralta and Holt, and that's that. The Box is an episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine that feels perfect because it's written with the same level of seriousness as any episode of the very police procedurals that it's a parody of. The stakes are high, the emotions are deep, and somehow the show delivers on the laughs over and over again. It's well-paced, expertly structured, and is a reminder that comedy is often serious business.
Life is unpredictable. Not everything is in our control, but as long as we're with the right people, we can handle anything.
If you had to sum up what Brooklyn Nine-Nine was really about in just a few short sentences, it's hard to imagine anyone could do much better than that. Despite ending on a cliffhanger, the show was canceled by Fox at the end of its 5th season. It would be miraculously rescued from retirement by another network, but if it had gone out, it would have gone out with a bang, because season 5 of Brooklyn Nine-Nine was just about perfect. Centered around the immature yet highly capable detective Jake Peralta, Brooklyn Nine-Nine followed the lives and cases of the police officers at the titular New York precinct. By the time the show's 5th season began airing on September 26, 2017, those characters had been through thick and thin together, evolved into better people, and deeply endeared themselves to both fans and critics.
Woo woo! Yes. Whoop whoop, Raymond and the Gangle.
Business-wise, however, it was a bit of a different story. Brooklyn Nine-Nine had a strong start, scoring 2 Golden Globes in its first season, including Best TV Comedy and Best Actor in a Comedy for Samberg, while also averaging a respectable 4.8 million viewers per episode. It was quickly picked up for a second season, which would do even better, and season 3 saw a slight drop-off but still performed decently. But while the critical acclaim and awards nominations persisted, the show's ratings were hampered by schedule changes, and season 4 saw a steep drop-off. Perhaps for that reason, it ended on the series' arguably most dramatic cliffhanger ever. A dirty cop frames Peralta and Detective Rosa Diaz for a crime they didn't commit, and the pair are sentenced to 15 years in prison.
Very cool.
Cool. Dramatic cliffhangers were usually a given on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, but right from the moment they started outlining season 5, the show's producers saw the writing on the wall. According to co-creator Dan Gore, when it came to planning the season, they took a different tact than usual. We were very conscious of trying to make sure that our season finale wouldn't destroy our fans if it ended up being our series finale. Perhaps from the same sense that it would all be over soon, the resulting season would push the characters to new heights, produce several of the show's most emotional moments, and include the pretty much universally agreed upon best episode of the entire run. The season picks up a few months after its predecessor. In the 2-part premiere, The Big House, the detectives of the 9-9 are still working to clear Jake and Rosa, who are both just trying to survive behind bars. As usual, the show brilliantly plays their predicament as both a serious police drama and a hilarious subversion of one.
Saw you coming that time. Look who's got prison all figured out. Oh, he threw the ship!
In the end, the real bad guys get caught, the two detectives manage to make it out alive, and even regain their badges. Along the way, we see the lengths that the cops of the 9-9 are willing to go to help each other. It's an important theme that's threaded throughout the season, but equally important to the season's success is the emphasis placed on character growth. Facing a better than average chance of cancellation, the writers swung for the fences by letting some of the show's central protagonists become fully realized, or evolve in unexpected ways. For example, in Kicks, Rosa is surprised to find herself relieved when she thinks that her boyfriend Adrian Pimento is cheating on her. Despite the fact he turns out to be faithful, she breaks up with him anyway. This lays the groundwork for the emotional game night in which, after first coming out to Boyle, she announces to the rest of the squad that she's bisexual.
I'm bisexual. All right. I will now field 1 minute and 0 seconds of questions pertaining to this. Go.
The decision to have Rosa come out was only made after Beatrice's then recent revelation of her own bisexuality, so it wasn't the kind of thing you would have likely seen coming. On the other hand, since Rosa's guarded nature had kept her backstory mostly off-screen, the reveal didn't seem at odds with anything that had previously been established about the character. In fact, according to Beatrice, she had always subtly played the character as bisexual. But at an even deeper level, Rosa's storyline, breaking up with Pimento, coming out to Charles and the squad, asking Jake for help with her parents, demonstrates how much more open the once closed-off detective had become with herself and her friends. And of course, no one comes into their own over season 5 more than Jake. Take for example Kicks, which deals with his readjustment to life on the job and the ways in which being wrongly convicted and sent to prison had changed him. Newly reinstated, Jake finds himself doubting his conclusions about the guilt of a suspect due to his fears the man will face the same dangers he just faced in prison himself. To Holt, the increased concern with making sure he has the right man shows that being in prison made Jake a better cop and declares him ready to be in the field.
I thought you would be reckless, but I was wrong. Prison has made you more cautious.
But Jake, surprisingly, chooses to confine himself to a desk job until he feels ready, proving his experience made him wiser in even more ways than Holt suspected. Then, in The Box, the episode we broke down for our video on the perfect episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Jake proves his mastery as a detective, succeeding in extracting a confession from a suspect that even Holt couldn't figure out how to break. Between the two episodes, we see Jake become both a great man and a great detective. Over the course of the season, we also see the uptight Amy relax a little, and the flawlessly deadpan Holt show off more of his softer side, even letting himself have some fun once in a while, like in Halloween, the 4th consecutive annual Halloween heist episode.
It's heist time.
I love Halloween!
This particular one, it's worth noting, had a surprise ending that had Jake using the heist to propose to Amy, a moment many fans had waited for since they started dating in season 3. The season 5 finale then finds the squad coming together to save Jake and Amy's wedding from a bomb threat. In the end, they're married at a picturesque impromptu wedding, arranged by their colleagues right outside the precinct. And it's during Amy's vows that she says the line Holt would later quote,
"Life is unpredictable. Not everything's in our control, but as long as you're with the right people, you can handle anything."
After a season of watching the cops of the 9-9 repeatedly come together to help each other through the dangers of their profession and hardships of their personal lives, it made clear what the show had always really been about, a found family. And having Holt, Amy's mentor, learn this from her, just as he was about to find out if he had been chosen as the new police commissioner, seemed to bring it all together. It didn't matter if he was chosen or not, whatever happened, he'd be able to handle it because he was with the right people. The season 5 finale was well received by critics and fans, but they would nonetheless nonetheless find themselves getting destroyed on May 10th, 2018, when Fox announced the series was being canceled. Despite cranking out literally dozens of seasons of stale shows like Family Guy and The Simpsons, the network seemed to have a knack for axing critically beloved fan favorites. In 2006, for example, they ended the now iconic original 3-season run of Arrested Development, which, like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, was, at the time, in its creative prime.
Dad, I'm trying to find some money for the family.
Always money in a banana stand.
While the initial announcements didn't give a reason for the cancellation, it's pretty easy to figure out what happened. By the end of the 5th season, Brooklyn Nine-Nine, a relatively expensive series with a big cast, was down to averaging around 2.8 million viewers an episode, and Gore would also later cite the network making a change in the kind of programming it was doing. But the series had just delivered what was far and away its best season, and impassioned fans met the news of the cancellation with something bordering on outrage, including high-profile endorsements from the likes of Mark Hamill, Guillermo del Toro, Sean Astin, and Lin-Manuel Miranda. Perhaps because the fan outcry, or perhaps because co-owner Michael Schur had a long relationship with NBC thanks to his work on The Office and Parks and Recreation, the network picked up Brooklyn Nine-Nine the day after it was canceled. It was quickly announced the show would be back on NBC for a 12-episode 6th season, which was obviously great news for fans.
Nine-Nine!
Moving from one network to another is always a gamble. Different networks often target different demographics. New network executives usually have their own creative and programming tastes, and a different corporate standards and practices department may enforce different priorities. Any of these factors can make it a challenge for producers to maintain the quality of a show, and the core of what made it great. But Brooklyn Nine-Nine managed to pull it off smoothly. It would run for 3 more seasons at its new home, finally being canceled in 2021. Maybe because of how completely the potential ending of Season 5 sewed the whole series up, the show was never again quite able to rise to the same heights as it did in that season. But the 3 seasons at NBC were still beloved by fans and critics. And it never would have happened if Season 5 wasn't as strong as it was. Not just because the perfect season inspired fans to rise up and convince another network to give the series a reprise, although that is what happened, but really because the developments of Season 5 laid the groundwork for the new avenues of storytelling, character growth, and relationship dynamics that the writers were able to explore to such wonderful effect in the subsequent seasons. You have to assume that even Holt would give a season like that 3 oh dams.
Oh damn. Oh damn. Oh damn! Oh.
Sheila, that was awesome. Wow, I can't believe I executed that to perfection.
This is how you send off a character. In the Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode titled The 4 Movements, Gina leaves the precinct with a statue and some parting words before leaving the show entirely, and it's honestly one of the more well-done send-offs for a fan-favorite character. It wraps up her character nicely, and she leaves in a way that feels pretty Gina.
Psych! Did he fall? Terry, did you fall for it?
Unfortunately, this is how you ruin a send-off.
Duncan, this better be good news.
Oh, it is. Your video's huge. From Spokane to Spain, you're global, Jeans. Now let's talk strategy.
This is gonna take a while.
This happens just 11 episodes later in an episode titled The Return of the King. Usually writers wait a season or 2 before bringing a previously written off character back into the series, but this just didn't work. And it's not because it isn't funny, it is. It didn't work because the writers abandoned all of their established character tropes in favor of creating something purely ridiculous. It seemingly comes out of nowhere and is equal parts jolting and insulting. Not only is this episode a structural mess, it's also an example of how writing characters from a perspective of indifference and disconnect can work against you in the long run. Brooklyn Nine-Nine's final season concluded on September 16, 2021. The Andy Samberg single-camera spoof of an overproduced police procedurals featured a rotating cast of award-winning dramatic actors alongside some of the most predominant names in comedy. Some of the characters stuck around for the entirety of the show's 8-year run, and some did not. There comes a time in almost every long-running television show in which we, as an audience, are forced to say goodbye to a beloved character. The send-off moment happens frequently in the world of television for a variety of different reasons. Contracts expire, new opportunities present themselves, people become problematic or prove difficult to work with, things can change, and writers have to adapt to the best of their ability. The problem with farewell episodes of television is that they, more often than not, end up being relatively self-centered. This is especially true when the farewell episode centers around a more tertiary character in the show's central plot. Shows abandon their plot lines and character development and instead end up focusing on saying goodbye. It actually happens quite often in the very police procedurals that Brooklyn Nine-Nine lampoons. Emily Wickersham was written off of NCIS to go on a sort of generic secret mission. Louis Lombardi faces a really gut-wrenching demise in 24. Of course, these episodes can be heartfelt and nostalgic, but as far as storytelling goes, these episodes have a tendency to feel more like they're just treading water. In the case of Gina Linetti, she receives not one, but 2 farewell episodes in the same season. Neither of these episodes are in the conversation for greatest episode of all time, but after setting such a high bar for a character send-off with her first farewell, Gina's second farewell episode really sets a low bar as far as Brooklyn Nine-Nine episodes go. Gina Linetti was a character that served her purpose beautifully throughout 5 seasons of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. She provided a veneer of tongue-in-cheek sarcasm and cynicism during what would be some of the more tedious moments of the show.
What is that? Cement! You just drank cement!
She often reminded us that we were, in fact, watching a comedy at times. Her complete lack of respect for the police department that she worked for felt like a perfect fit for the show's propensity to dip its toes into the realm of absurdity, but it also never felt like it was going all in on being completely over the top. Chelsea Peretti didn't leave Brooklyn Nine-Nine on bad terms. She just felt like it was her time to go. From various interviews, we can glean that this was a mutual split. Chelsea Peretti was welcoming a child and was looking to balance her time between work and being a mom. There was no drama, no mudslinging, no thinly veiled illusions of problematic behavior. In fact, Peretti worked closely with the writers and producers to give Gina Linetti a proper send-off. When Gina returns for her second farewell in what is arguably the worst episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, she is almost a different character entirely. The writers sort of take this weird moment to take the character of Gina Linetti and make their own cartoon caricature out of her. All of Gina's defining characteristics are amplified to a fairly large degree, and gone are the days of Gina's tenure as the assistant to Captain Holt, as Gina is now this sort of ridiculously flashy and successful social media influencer. This is a fun moment for the character and sort of serves as a bit of a status shift for the rest of the cast. They aren't dealing with the sort of dry, wisecracking, deadpan Gina anymore. They're dealing with something much larger. The problem with exaggerating a smaller character's features to this degree means that sometimes the more negative aspects of a character begin to sort of shine through. Something that once worked well because its subtlety might not work as well when amplified to a ridiculous degree. Gina's trademark cynicism and sarcasm end up being really difficult emotions to amplify without creating a character that is about as unlikable as they come.
Duncan, I almost died. It was amazing.
Those tiny, brief accents of disaffected wit become long and exhaustive dives into unhinged narcissism. Imagine, just for a second, that these characters have little dials on every single one of their character aspects. Writers then spend the time fidgeting and playing with these dials to varying degrees of success. Generally, positive character tropes tend to be a little easier to play with. There are a couple reasons for this. The first being that it's more fun for the audience to watch characters who get along to some degree. Even if characters bicker, fight, scream, or just do terrible things, we need to be able to understand why the characters actually like each other, or at the very least tolerate each other for comedic scenes to really start working. The second reason is that positivity is much more malleable than negativity. In the case of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, it's more fun when we are watching our characters work together towards a common goal. It's fun to watch Terry and Peralta working on a case together. It's fun to watch Captain Holt deliver life lessons to the supporting cast. It's fun to watch our characters get along. If we take a moment to look at what is arguably the best episode of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, The Box, we see all of our characters starting off in a somewhat positive place. Throughout the episode, the positivity and confidence the characters have slowly breaks down into uncertainty and desperation, and it feels like a very natural progression of emotional intensity. Now, if everyone started this episode in that negative place of fear and desperation, there would never be any emotional arc for the character. Everything would feel pretty linear and boring. It also wouldn't be nearly as rewarding to see the characters regain their confidence later on in the episode.
Oh, damn. Oh, damn. Oh, damn!
And that is 3 oh dams.
It is much more difficult to turn anger, fear, and sadness into happiness, in a way that feels natural at least. The one thing that sort of breaks these rules and doesn't really lean one way or the other is apathy. Creating characters that operate through an apathetic lens is the purgatory of character development. There's not really much to do with a character that doesn't care about themselves or other characters. This is a big part of where Return of the King starts to break down as far as a Brooklyn Nine-Nine episode goes. Gina Linetti returns almost as an insult to the rest of the cast. When she first departed the show, she sort of hung around a bit while the rest of the cast took time to almost persuade her out of leaving. She left a statue and a recorded message on the computer, and the characters seemed genuinely bummed that she wouldn't be around anymore. In Return of the King, she comes back without caring about anyone in the cast. She continuously blows off almost every character she comes across. It's like the writers were writing for a completely different person. She sends her assistant to planned hangouts at the pub. She ignores the requests. She disobeys direction designed to keep her safe from an assassination attempt. It almost plays out like the fun the writers were having in making Gina this new sort of social media diva came at the expense of trying to write a decent episode of television that made sense within the established context of Gina's pre-existing character dynamics. These episodes can feel ridiculous and fun, but when the plot lines go a little too far, things can really start to get away from us in terms of structure. There's a balance that needs to be achieved in an episode like this, and Return of the King scales, they never really level out. The pseudo-seriousness and parody that makes Brooklyn Nine-Nine so great is effectively thrown out the window in favor of creating some rather ridiculous and arguably out-of-character moments that don't really line up with the overall vibe of the show. For characters to work together, they must care about each other to some degree. If our characters can't find a way to connect with one another, the audience won't be able to connect with them either. Writers need to make the decision to care, and in the case of Return of the King, it's a good demonstration of how just because something can feel fun in a show doesn't necessarily mean that it will feel right to an audience.
Hey, you guys, you own that Patty's Pub. That's the skeeviest bar I ever been to. You're a bunch of lowlifes.
When the gang from It's Always Sunny wreaked havoc through the halls of Abbott Elementary, unsuspecting audiences erupted in stunned laughter. Like a blast from the golden years of television's past, this sitcom crossover reminded us how hilarious it can be when TV comedies collide. And with the promise of more to come from Abbott's finest and Philadelphia's worst, many fans are asking, whatever happened to sitcom crossovers?
I am so proud of you. You crazy SMB, you did it.
You can read, Charlie.
I did it. I actually read, which I always could do.
Much like their comic book counterparts, the first official sitcom crossover featured capes and high-flying action. I Love Lucy, the groundbreaking and wildly popular TV comedy, brought Superman onto the set. Lucy and Superman was broadcast in 1957, and this episode marked a major change in the series, and televised programming as a whole. The Superman gimmick was clearly an attempt to revive interest in a series nearing the end of its run, but for audiences, a love for sitcom crossovers was born.
You mean to say that you've been married to her for 15 years?
Yeah, 15 years.
And they call me Superman.
Throughout the 1960s, mashup events continued to pop up sporadically, but once again, comic books seemed to lead the charge. Batman, featuring the zany psychedelic comedy stylings of Adam West, fostered 5 crossovers throughout the decade. From the Monkees to the Addams Family and even Hogan's Heroes, a whole generation of TV sitcoms got funky with Bruce Wayne.
Aren't you in the wrong city? On special assignment for the Daily Sentinel. You know my aide, Cato? Robin, the boy wonder.
Genre shows continued to see successful mergers between franchises, like The Bionic Woman and The $6 Million Man. And just as Scooby-Doo began casting time-slot partners for various hijinks, the sitcom crossovers came roaring back with a vengeance. The sitcoms of the late 70s saw a major breakthrough in shared universe stories. After cutting his teeth as a writer for various sitcoms, Gary Marshall had made a name for himself as the go-to scribe for syndicated laughs. Perhaps looking back on his past working for Lucy, the writer decided it was time to bring back sitcom crossovers in a big way. Starting in 1976, Marshall successfully merged his Happy Days mega hit with its popular spin-off Laverne and Shirley, the lesser-known Blansky's Beauties, and the Robin Williams debut vehicle, Mork and Mindy. Throughout multiple specials, these characters cavorted and canoodled in and out of each other's respective shows.
Laverne, this is Laverne DeFazio, she's mine. And this is Shirley Feeney, she's yours, as you can see.
Nice to meet you, Richie.
My pleasure.
Despite how unrealistic some of these characters were, looking at you, Mork, audiences were nonetheless thrilled by the comedic world-building possibilities.
I'm Laverne, please.
I too am pleased.
Nano.
Marshall pulled out the stops at ABC and followed up with a Happy Days meets Laverne and Shirley doubleheader. Played out across both programs, these episodes should have marked a pivotal moment in how TV producers viewed their IP, but unfortunately, audiences weren't quite buying it. Already 2 years past the infamous shark jump, Happy Days was well past its prime when the Laverne and Shirley shotgun wedding saga aired. Much like the Batman era of constant crossovers, the Marshall years had left audiences feeling fatigued and frankly fooled. However, as delighted as ABC may have been with their multi-show phenomenons, ratings soon tapered and sitcom crossovers stalled. But by the following decade, everything would change.
How annoying could one kid be?
From Full House meets Family Matters to fruitful encounters between Bob Newhart and Murphy Brown, sitcom crossovers hit the ground running in the 90s. While many of these meetups made perfect sense, take the geographically linked Cheers and Wings, for instance, some sitcom crossovers had downright bizarre setups. I mean, sure, the Winslows could realistically travel from Chicago to San Francisco, but seeing the pint-sized Urkel hanging out with the Tanners feels forced beyond belief.
I think we lost him. We lost too. Just some pesky kid that keeps following us around.
You know, some people just don't know when they're not wanted.
That sense of misplaced commercial appeal continued in strange crossovers like the Mad About You meets Seinfeld misstep of 1992. Despite featuring New York's zaniest neighbor, the sitcom crossover made little impact on fans of either series. Although it faded from memory, this brief link-up did result in one of George Costanza's most notorious storylines.
Hello? Hey, MSG's rerunning the Yankee game. You watching this?
They are. George, you coming to bed? I text Matt about you.
Outside of animated comedy staples like The Simpsons and Family Guy, the comedic TV crossover once again began to fade away throughout the early aughts. Most of these specials effectively died when executives put their focus on streaming. Sure, a few duds like Tim Allen's Last Man Standing meets Tim the Toolman specials might sneak in from time to time.
Kind of my thing, because it was, man, a little annoying.
And the effectively strange Brooklyn Nine-Nine plus New Girl meet cute was a brief relief.
Damn it! He got away!
Well, I spilled my soup. You tell me which is worse.
My thing!
But overall, the time for sitcom crossovers appeared to be at an end, which is what makes the Abbott Elementary and It's Always Sunny crossover so fascinating. It is, of course, fitting for fictional Philadelphia residents to come together for multiple episodes of comedy greatness.
Did you ever get into a fight at an Eagles game?
Of course.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah. Have you? Oh, are you kidding? What have I not? Well,
But at first glance, the mashup is almost anarchic. Hilarious in its own right, Abbott Elementary is a show that wears its heart on its sleeve.
I thought that we could make a playlist starting with some oldies.
Ooh, how about 50 Cent in the club?
Okay, no, that's not an oldie and you shouldn't be listening to that.
The same cannot be said about Abbott's Philly counterparts, the Gang.
Dude, what's all that stuff you're grabbing?
Tools! Tools! Duct tape, zip ties, and gloves! I have to have my tools!
But rather than let the epically popular It's Always Sunny crew run rampant over the proceedings, the episode instead treats their arrival as temporary volunteers, as if they were colorful side characters. This is exactly the sort of mashup we crave as sitcom viewers.
Do any of you have any experience with duct work?
Oh, I've done tons of duct work.
You said duck work or duct?
What did you say?
Like an unstoppable force meeting an immovable object is the sort of train wreck none of us want to look away from. After, the gang is subjected to a court-ordered public service sentence at the underfunded Abbott Elementary, the school staff and part-time bar owners clash with hilarious results.
You're criminals.
Okay.
Come on. Hey, is it a crime to dump 100 gallons of baby oil in the school pool?
And 500 Patty's Pub t-shirts.
And a Cybertruck.
Yes.
From Dee getting way too comfortable with Gregory, Charlie finally learning to read, and Dennis...
No, I don't think so. I know quite a bit about filming and consent, and I think I'll be spending my time on the other side of the camera. Thank you very much.
Volunteers Part 1 is a perfect marriage of the unlikeliest partners. In typical Abbott fashion, Ava relishes the idea of exploiting the gang for free labor, but in perfect It's Always Sunny style, Mac absolutely blows it for everyone else by just being Mac.
Oh, still warm?
There's probably not even anything left for us to do this week, so if you could just go ahead and sign the slip.
Oh, not right now. My hands are sticky.
And if that wasn't enough to sate fans of Philadelphia's favorite school and the ghouls from Patty's Pub, the show's team made sure to amp up the fresh rom-com status of Gregory and Janine, while Frank got down and dirty as always.
He is actually with someone. Me.
What?
Yeah.
Janine! Nice pull.
Thank you. It took a long time.
Yeah, you're good if I take a spin, though, yeah?
In the tradition of Gary Marshall's cross-platform mix-ups, both series will air an episode apiece. with each showing the events from the perspective of its respective characters. Perhaps this successful merger between Abbott Elementary and It's Always Sunny can prove once and for all that we can all still get together for a laugh, even in the streaming age.
I got to eat some fiber. Charlie learned to read. Community service is great. Crime is worth it.
I cannot believe a pipe burst and left that there.
There's no burst pipe.
How do you know that? What is it then? Hey guys, somebody making soup?
Television and comedy might just be the best combo of all time. Because whether you're sacked out on the couch after a long day or catching up on the latest episode with your loved ones, nothing beats a good laugh. But these days, televised comedy often comes with a fair share of baggage. Emotionally charged, overtly subversive, and sometimes shockingly violent, this current wave of modern programming feels downright serious. So what exactly happened to the laugh tracks and easygoing sitcoms of yesteryear?
That's funny!
That's weird because the situation really isn't funny.
I know, but the laughing tells me that it's funny.
They have timing, man. They have timing for sure.
For 75 years and running, the Emmy Awards have served to honor the achievements of television's brightest stars. And as testament to humor's importance on the small screen, the Academy of Television Arts created a comedy-specific Emmys category within 4 years of its inception. With such long-standing critiques of televised humor and the universal appeal of comedy, you might assume television arts voters could do no wrong. But in fact, the Primetime Emmy Award for Best Comedy Series has become the most controversial category in the Academy's history. And while it is easy to pass the blame on Emmy voters, the troubled nominee lists speak more to the sorry state of television comedies at large. When the Academy released its list of nominees for the 2024 Outstanding Comedy Award, it was impossible not to notice some major changes. Of the 8 televised comedies nominated, one show stood out like a sore thumb. Because in a sea of profanity-laden HBO shows, genre-based anomalies, and impassioned social statements, only one sitcom remained.
Abbott Elementary, make some noise!
The sitcom, or situational comedy, is a specific genre that relies on a set location and a reoccurring cast of characters. Unlike the frantic nature of sketch comedies, sitcoms offer audiences a chance to relate to laughable characters and familiar settings. And although the first televised sitcom, 1946's Penrith Progress, was produced across the pond, American sitcoms came to prominence shortly after. Abbott Elementary might not feature a laugh track, but in today's world of heavy-handed humorists and grim grinning gangsters, the ABC mockumentary is as old school as it gets. Show creator and star Quinta Brunson's characterization of an underfunded school in a major metro isn't without its tough moments, but opposed to the anxiety-riddled dramatics of The Bear, Abbott Elementary feels utterly quaint.
Oh, you work at the school district?
Yeah.
Oh, you know that these schools are criminally underfunded.
Yeah. I'm working on it. Let's just take the picture.
Okay.
Prior to the Emmy's most recent spat of serious situationals, easygoing sitcoms like Abbott Elementary reigned supreme. Throughout the 1950s, I Love Lucy dominated the category with double wins and multiple nominations. Then in the 60s, Bob Newhart, Andy Griffith, and Dick Van Dyke stole the silver sets. By the 70s, Mary Tyler Moore and All in the Family had taken the lead, and through the 80s and 90s, and up in the aughts, the American sitcom seemed unstoppable.
USA! USA! USA!
It's easy to look at the 2024 Emmy nominations as a sign of drastic change, but in fact, this onslaught of dark TV comedies has been more of like a slow trickle of gallows humor and poignant tales. As mentioned, All in the Family was a major force in 1970s TV comedies. In fact, it was nominated for an Emmy every year of its 9-season run. Ultimately winning 4 of those awards, All in the Family was a hilarious classic sitcom, complete with the then requisite laugh track.
May I know what we're having for supper tonight? Nothing!
But lurking beneath the one-liners and celebrated cast of the Bunker household, some truly edgy material was at hand, with plot lines centered on topics ranging from racism, the Vietnam War, and differing lifestyles. All in the Family spoke directly to an audience grappling with these same challenges. It is impossible to fairly compare a decades-old sitcom like All in the Family to a modern comedy like Abbott Elementary. But subject matter and societal norms aside, you can see a through line from one to the next in terms of what audiences expect from their televised comedy. Laughter with a heartbeat.
Oh my God, what did he just say to you? That if you don't do well, you're gonna get fired? Worse. He mumbled and I didn't hear it.
And when we look back on the staying power of All in the Family, that serious streak so common today is highly evident. Take for example the 8th season 2-part special, Edith's 50th Birthday, in which the Bunker family faces a truly devastating crime. These highly acclaimed episodes serve as a reminder that All in the Family pushed the envelope in ways that we're still reckoning with today, and it leads one to wonder if even a bright spot like Abbott Elementary can go the same distance. Because how do you grapple with dark nature of humanity while still being, well, funny?
Did you hear this over here? Draft dodger, fugitive from justice, you know? FBI. How'd you like the FBI to come and have dinner with you here?
Oh, Archie, we ain't got enough turkey.
Also dealing with mature concepts in the yesteryear of sitcoms, MASH revolutionized TV. Featuring a Korean War setting and a cast of kooky field medics, the CBS comedy was a major hit with audiences and the Academy alike. In its accomplished 11-year run, MASH received a staggering amount of nominations and 14 wins. And for a show that relied on extremely heavy themes, it seemed audiences craved intensity. But looking ahead to the winners and nominees of today, it's clear that if anything has changed for the worse, it's that classic sense of restraint. When you take a show like MASH, set it in a war-torn community, themes like loss and untimely death are a given, and MASH handles those themes with the care and grace of a surgeon.
War isn't hell. War is war and hell is hell, and of the two, war is a lot worse.
As if to say, we know you came here for laughs, so we'll save the grisly stuff for off-screen. 2024 Emmy comedy winner Hacks, on the other hand, chose to handle its heavy scenes, well, a little differently. Set in the world of stand-up comedy and the inner lives of celebrities, often oversteps into harsher vibes. It's easy to replace the grim truths of life with shock and awe, and as writers grow up on adult-minded content like MASH, the lines between comedy and violence seem to blur. But Hacks is certainly no exception to the sensational nature of modern television. Though there have always been campy and ridiculous Emmy nominees, What We Do in the Shadows takes the cake. With a similar mockumentary sitcom vibe to Abbott Elementary, What We Do in the Shadows brings subversion to drastic heights.
He's my pal. He's my homeboy, my rotten soldier. He's my sweet cheese, my good time boy.
And while critically lauded comedies of the supernatural persuasion have long existed, just take a peek at 1968 Emmy nominee The Ghost of Mrs. Muir. What We Do in the Shadows' bloodline flows firmly in the veins of horror. Just a few decades ago, sitcom mockumentaries like Abbott and Shadows completely took over the Emmys. Beginning with an American take on BBC's The Office, NBC were pioneers in the burgeoning genre. The network soon followed up on their Emmy-winning series with Parks and Recreation, another critical darling. HBO even took a swing at this new breed of workplace comedies with the multiple Emmy-winning Veep.
Sue, did the president call?
No. And although the exploits of its familiar sitcom star are adult and highly political in nature, Veep honored the comedy comes first formula of its predecessors.
Well, go yourself, long, tall Sally.
But none of these faux doc comedy series came close to the righteous rule from competitor ABC, because when Modern Family hit the scene, both the Academy and viewers had found their new critical darling. With 5 consecutive wins, Modern Family remains tied with Frasier for the most Emmys in the comedy category. But eventually, the tides began to turn. In the midst of the sitcom mockumentary award blitz, a new strain of televised comedy began to appear. With the emergence of streamers like Netflix and Amazon Prime, starkly adult comedies became a fascination for subscribers. With high ratings and an emphasis on emotional cores, shows like Orange is the New Black, Master of None, and Transparent started receiving Emmy nods almost immediately. But it was perhaps in 2018 that televised comedy truly took a major plunge into uncharted waters. Nominees like Blackish, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, Curb Your Enthusiasm, and even Silicon Valley bore striking resemblance to Emmy nods of old. But the high-flying drama of Glow, the stylish realities of Atlanta, and the extreme violence of Barry were an entirely new reality. Ultimately, Amazon Prime's The Marvelous Miss Maisel took home the prize in 2018, but even this semi-biographical take on the life of a comedian served more drama than laughs. And those dramatics are certainly not without precedent in the world of televised comedy. Long before The Big Bang Theory became the last award-winning comedy series with a laugh track, The Wonder Years charmed voters and viewers with a muted, realistic approach to coming-of-age stories. Although it is highly stylized and cerebral, 2024's Reservation Dogs might be the closest analog to emotionally punctuated comedies like The Wonder Years. It's far too surreal and pointed to serve as any real reminder of dramedies' past. past. While it is true that bona fide comedy shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm still court the Emmys on occasion, TV's gang of most outrageous cut-ups have been left out in the cold for over a decade. As the longest-running sitcom in American history, It's Always Sunny has provided more laughs and garnered more fans than most shows could ever dream of. But with 0 Emmy nominations and running, it's even more canon to the show's lore.
I mean, I guess it is us, after all, you know? It's
most
us.
definitely.
Right, it's us.
Screw them. You know why? Because I like us.
We can always hold out hope that It's Always Sunny receives its dues one day, and award nominations for the recently deceased Curb Your Enthusiasm are a kind gesture toward genuine comedy, but these low-drama highlights are legacy shows developed during the prime of network sitcoms, a time that seems long behind us. At this point, many are left to wonder what it takes to get an out-and-out comedy developed for television. But perhaps the real issue lies in an evolution of taste. Standardized sitcoms do still exist, but it seems we have moved past their simple pleasures. Laugh tracks are still laid down beside reboots and revamps of classic sitcoms, but who's really thinking about them? Maybe the writer's room of modern comedy aren't seeking the same audience as a Frasier or a Seinfeld. And to prospective Emmy voters, there is perhaps a desire to showcase stories that contain quality narratives over incessant jokes. With more high-profile TV dramas than ever, maybe we've just run out of places to put lightly funny, super serious programs. Whatever the reason for the decline of lauded TV comedies, one thing is crystal clear. Audiences miss the laughs. And whether through the retro gaze of a standardized sitcom or some new hybridized genre, we all hope for the return of a good old-fashioned joke.
I really wanted an award, though.
I was dying for one.
Ah, it was so nice.
Would have meant a lot.